Welcome one, welcome all to the NFC East Mixtape, a very special edition of the Mixtape. This is a very special show. You can listen to it on any of the 4 SB Nation blog podcast networks for, of course, the NFC East teams. Blogging the Boys for the Dallas Cowboys, Hogs Haven for the Washington Commanders, Big Blue View for the New York Giants, and Bleeding Green Nation for the Philadelphia Eagles. My name is RJ Ochoa from BTB. He is Brandon Lee Gowton from BGN. Brandon, it is volume 52 of the NFC East Mixtape. There are 52 weeks in a year. We drop one of these every single week. That means we have been doing this for a full calendar year. Happy anniversary, my man.
I forgot about that.
You forgot our anniversary. Oh my gosh. I'm so hurt. I
know. Look, the draft's coming up and a lot going on, and I'm losing track of time. Feels like I have so much to do and so little time to do it. That's where we are.
Well, on the subject of anniversaries, there are important things to remember, which Brandon just did not. And somebody who is going to have one in the future to remember is a very good friend of the NFC East Mixtape, Brian Stabby. Just wanted to give a huge shout out and congratulations to Stabby, of course, of Hogs Haven. Shared on Twitter on Monday that he got engaged. So a heartfelt congratulations from you and I, BLG.
It's awesome. I cannot be convinced that Brian Stabby and Michael Kist are not the same person, but that's very much a compliment, as they are two very accomplished and talented and bearded and fellow bald individuals. So congrats to Brian. Awesome news.
You would know that he is bald and bearded if you have watched the NFC East Mixtape on YouTube. You can watch it on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel or the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel. We had some technical difficulties last week for our YouTube audience, which is why we were absent there. Hopefully, the internet gremlins don't come for us today. Speaking of today, Brandon, we are going to rank all of the 16 starting quarterbacks in the NFC to kind of get a picture, kind of get a lay of the land on where the NFC East kind of lies within all of that. But before we get there, I wanted to ask you, do you have any mundane thing that is going to be happening in your life that would be meaningless to anybody else, but is something that you are very excited about coming up?
Do you have an example?
I do. Today, we record these on Tuesdays, which has been the subject of much consternation from our listeners. But today, Spider-Man No Way Home arrives in the mail on DVD and Blu-ray and digital download. I've been waiting to watch it in the comfort of my own home for all this time, so I'm really pumped about it. I don't know that I'll get a chance to do it until the weekend because of work and life and the kid and everything. But, I loved The Masters last weekend, as you well know. But what is kind of a bummer about it is it, takes up all my time. When it happens, it's a 4-day event where I don't get to watch any movies or TV in any sort of downtime because I'm trying to consume all the content. So I'm very excited to watch Spider-Man No Way Home 1,000 times in a row.
What a first world problem. I can't watch any movies or shows because I'm watching golf. I watched No Way Home in theaters. It was really good. I love the ending obviously I'm not going to say it here and spoil it for everyone. Extremely mundane for me would be, I'm probably going to have a frozen pizza today. And I'm really excited about that. It's like a once a week kind of thing for me. I love pizza. Obviously, not just frozen pizza, but I love pizza in all forms. And it's just kind of nice. It's like a really simple, easy dinner. Put that bad boy in the oven. And I like to doctor it up, as my grandmother would say. Add some hot sauce. I have a bunch of different hot sauces, some different seasonings. I like to kind of make it fun, as fun as I possibly can. So that is my extremely mundane thing that I'm looking forward to.
This week's edition of the Mixtape is actually the second podcast that BLG and I are doing together. Well, that's
I have another take before you get to that.
Let me get the plug-in.
Okay.
So this is the second podcast that he and I are doing together. For all you loyal listeners, we actually did this week's episode of Monday Football Monday together because Pete Sweeney, my normal co-host, was out. And at the very end of that episode, I asked BLG, I said, give me anything you're excited to eat so far this week. And he literally just said pizza. So nice kind of connect the dots for our crossover listeners, because everybody that's listening here, whether that's BTB, BGN, Hogs Haven, Big Blue View, should be listening to the SB Nation NFL show as well. But you had something else you wanted to sandwich in. Not the
maybe
food.
Pizza
right.
in.
Right.
I never lie to the listeners, and I would say that if you want to tweet at us your favorite frozen pizza brand, you can do that. I'm on Twitter at Brandon Gowton. RJ is on Twitter at RJ Ochoa, because we want to hear from you, and you can use hashtag Mixtape
Pizza. Just make it simple.
It's
funny you asked me that. My mom actually asked me 2 days ago what preferred frozen pizza brand I go with, and I said I like DiGiorno's and Red Baron. So those are
disappointed in the Red
Look,
Baron.
I mean, like, I'm not saying like they're the best, but like they're accessible. They're generally cheaper than the rest. They're like right at the front of the aisle. So those are the ones I've gone with in the past. I'm not like opposed to anything else. But I did want to say one last thing. You brought up hot sauce. Every time I think of hot sauce on a pizza, I always think of. Have you seen the movie Selena about the late artist's wife? Well, then you don't understand what I'm about to say. So never mind. But anybody who has seen the movie understands the scene I'm talking about.
I think there's different kind of hot sauces, obviously, that go well with different kinds of pizza. But that's a different topic for another day. I would say my favorite frozen pizza brand, and this is not a sponsor, but they're welcome to if they want to. I don't know if this is available nationally. I haven't seen it everywhere, but it's this brand called Screamin' Sicilian. They do a really good job for some reason. I think very impressive. They're kind of like pricier for a frozen pizza, but they're pretty good. I think DiGiorno is good for certain things they do. Like if you like
delivery, right?
Not delivery, it's DiGiorno. Also not a sponsor. None of these are sponsors, for the record. They do a good like rising crust. They also do like a stuffed crust, and I also think they do like a croissant crust that I've had. So they do some fun things that are interesting. Red Baron had that a lot growing up, and it was fine. But I felt like at some point the sauce got like too spicy, or there was just too much of it. Like something, I'm having a bad memory with Red Baron. A low key favorite of mine, Tombstone, not the Western movie with. Kurt
also
Russell?
Not the block on a grave.
Correct. Yeah. I don't eat that. But actually, it's like it's fun. It's cool too because it doesn't come in a box like a lot of frozen pizzas. It's just like the plastic packaging. Little tongue twister there. So those are my favorites.
Two last things before we actually start talking about football. One, when I first started dating my wife, because I was very interested in her, I did this. She suggested, I forgot what it was called, but it was like a place. I'm sure you've done this before because this is like right up your alley. It's like you go to this place and you like design your pizza and then they give it to you and you have to take it home and bake it. I think that's the dumbest thing in the world. I'm sorry. Like if I'm going to pay,
that?
Yeah, so you go and like you just it's kind of like when you go to like Subway or Chipotle, like any sort of like process line, and so you pick everything you want and then they just put it all on.
Is this
they
a chain?
it. I forget what it was called, but it was a chain. At least we were at the time we were living in San Antonio, so they had them all over the city. So it was again like it's cool, but like I'm doing all the work, I'm paying all the money. Like
what is this? This is a scam.
She thought it was cool, and like I said, I was interested, and it worked out for me in that sense. But I would never do that ever again with the pizza. So I
don't think pizza works out that way. I know they've tried to they've done that to some extent, like the Chipotle-fication of pizza. I guess I've never been to a Blaze, but I hear like Blaze kind of does that. I don't know.
Right. Anyway, my last thing, and then we'll talk football. When you make a frozen pizza in your home, do you like cut it up and put it on a plate and go sit down and eat it, or do you do the like just eat it on the like pan you baked it on, like standing in the kitchen move? That's generally how I fall.
I have a nice pizza cutter that I get, and I cut it up into 8, and I usually just eat it that way. I put it on the slices onto a plate, maybe 2 at a time, pace it out. Yeah.
Okay. Respect. All right, let's 8 minutes we did on non-football stuff. Congratulations to us.
Is not listening anymore.
Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to your preferred podcast feed here with all the 4 NFC East teams.
Yeah,
all right,
we owe you some readings of the reviews at some point.
We're gonna get there. We have a lot that are backlogged. Shout out to all of you. Yeah, I mean, but actually, we've got a kind of a meaty subject here. I mean, ranking the NFC quarterbacks. This is important because there's been this like defection of talent from the NFC to the AFC, including one of the better quarterbacks and Russell Wilson, a popular player on the NFC East Mixtape. I'm an NFC guy, but AFC baby, that I love that blue end, but I mean the red 8 is just something about it. I mean, there's no A in Let's Ride, but maybe we can get one in there. There's 2 different vowels. Let's ride, baby. Let's go. There's an A in baby. Yeah.
If you're not watching the YouTube version, you're missing getting to see Russell Wilson actually appear on the Mixtape in person.
All right, so we're gonna go in ascending order, right? Like, there's no doubt about this, right?
Yeah, like bottom up.
Right. That's what the word ascending means. So good job by you defining things.
Clarifying it for the listeners. Yeah.
So we didn't like confer who the 16 were, but we're going with the 16 starting quarterbacks. That's how I ranked my list, right? Like, so there's some like room for ambiguity. We're not factoring Baker Mayfield into this, even though there's lots of speculation that he could potentially be traded to the Seahawks or the Panthers. We're going with who their starters are today, Tuesday, April 12th, 2022, 11:15 a.m. Central Standard Time. Boom.
Yeah, and that wouldn't even change like too much. That changes like a little bit in the middle, maybe, but who cares?
All right, so we agree that number 16 is Sam Darnold, right? Like there's no.
I have Drew Lock. We talked about this actually on Monday Football Monday, but
He's 15 for me. So I have Sam Darnold 16, Drew Lock 15.
You're splitting hairs. It doesn't I'm not about to argue this. If you want to go the other way, fine, whatever. I would just say Darnold is as a higher pick and he's slightly younger. I would say maybe he has a little bit more upside and he did some things as a runner early on last year, but either way, these guys clearly are not viable starters. And imagine being a Panthers fan or a Seahawks fan and just having to go into the season with this. This is
life comes at you so fast. And this was actually kind of long ago, but these two teams, the Seahawks and the Panthers, met twice in the playoffs. They met in the divisional round in 2014. That was that crazy Cam Chancellor jump over the goal line field goal block game. That was in Seattle. And then they met in the divisional round in 2015 when the Panthers were 15-1 and then wiped the floor with them. But who would have thought? You know what I mean? 8-7 years later, again, that is a long time, but that these would be the bottom two teams. It's a hard pill to swallow. And granted, the Panthers have kind of been here for a little bit, and Cam kind of had his career sort of fade moment. Cam not in the news right now for good reasons either. Really, really bad luck for Cam Newton as of late again. But yeah, I mean, the NFL is fickle like that.
Who do we have above the bottom two?
I have at number 14, Detroit Lions quarterback Jared Goff.
Really can't argue strongly against it. I have Daniel Jones here just because so it's an interesting exercise, obviously, because I would acknowledge that Daniel Jones has more upside, at least more of a ceiling left. But obviously Jared Goff has accomplished more as a starter. Now, he was paired with a head coach who's won a lot, but isn't actually any good and is overrated. And really more impressively, a supporting cast that helped him out there with the Rams. So it's the same kind of tier for me of quarterback. Mm-hmm. Jared Goff and Daniel Jones are still, and that's how I kind of am subdivided here into different little tiers, but not the ones you cry, but actually, the rankings. Yeah.
TIERS. Right.
Yeah. Just for the listener.
So I think when I think about Jared Goff, there are reasons like Sam Bradford was a number 1 overall pick, right? You can look back on that and you can understand that, right? You could be like, hey, this insane arm, whatever, blah, blah, okay, cool. You can understand how at one point in time people viewed him as the best quarterback in the NFL or in the NFL draft, excuse me. I even looking back, it's difficult to see how anyone ever viewed Jared Goff that way. He's become so awkward and clunky that it that has clouded my vision. Does that make sense? I can't get beyond that. All I can think about when I think back to the pre-draft process in 2016 was his small hands. Shout out Kenny Pickett. You know what I mean? But that's it. I cannot actually believe that happened and that the Rams traded up to draft him. That gets forgotten too.
Yeah, and it was because from an Eagles perspective at the time, it was great because I'd rather have Carson Wentz than Jared Goff, just from a standpoint of this dude's way more athletic and seems to have more upside than Goff seems kind of more of a safe prospect. And I think you give Jared Goff a clean pocket to work with, and I think he can make some good, accurate throws. But the problem is, you're not really always getting that, and you don't really trust him to create outside of structure, which is obviously why he's lower on this list. And he's a product of the system around him. We saw that with the Rams, and we saw that last year with the Lions. If you give him a good supporting cast, he's going to get you to the playoffs. He'll be fine, but he's not going to get you over the hump. You're not going to win because of Jared Goff. You can win with him, but that's where he kind of maxes out.
So, but you have Daniel Jones here at 14. So that would be our first NFC East presence.
So many turnovers. That's the big problem. And again, I think that there's a wider range of outcomes for him than a Jared Goff. There's more of a ceiling, but he's been so many turnovers. The injuries are a low-key issue. He's dealt with that multiple seasons now. And that's something. And last year with some of the next stuff and all that, that's concerning. That's a red flag. So.
But he's still an athlete. That's where I differentiate him from Goff. If we stick with the analogy of pizzas, which is appropriate. Goff is this you pulled it out of the oven too soon, so the middle's cold. It's not eatable or edible. You know what I'm saying? Daniel Jones is the kind of pizza that it falls apart, and so you've got to kind of just ball it up and shove it in your mouth. There's still legitimate taste there though.
I don't
know what I mean?
Do that with any kind of pizza, but
any kind of food. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you're eating a meal and it's messy or whatever, and so you've just got to shove it in. It's still really good.
It's a burger maybe.
Yeah, I think that's a better example. You've got to kind of go a little bit unorthodox as far as your approach. Exactly. But it still tastes the way food is supposed to taste. Like, that's the way I view Daniel Jones. There's nothing like that. There's nothing redeemable about Jared Goff as an athlete, especially playing quarterback in 2022. So that's, I think, a little bit too harsh on Daniel Jones to put him below Jared Goff. Maybe, like, the ranking might be fair, like, in a vacuum, but he's not as bad as Jared Goff.
I just think you have to, like, I was accounting for accomplishments and things that actually have done as much as, potential and things we think Daniel Jones can do. And obviously it hasn't been all of Daniel Jones' fault. I just, it's the same kind of tier. It's obvious. Is Daniel Jones not a bottom 5 quarterback? Where do you have him then?
Well, spoiler alert, I have Daniel Jones 10th. So we're
just
at 14.
outside.
Right. Okay, so let's continue moving up. So at 16, we both had 16, 15, we both had Drew Lock, Sam Darnold, whatever. 14, I had Jared Goff. You had Daniel Jones. I have a new tier to introduce right here. So this is, I'll just tell you both of them. At 13 and 12, 13, I have Trey Lance, and 12, I have Justin Fields. So Justin just ahead of them. So I'm going with Trey Lance as opposed to Jimmy Garoppolo because, why not? Shout out to Rob Stats Guerrera. And the only reason for this is it's a little unknown. Trey Lance is really unknown. Justin Fields, somewhat unknown. And you were right, in the pre-draft process when everybody's like, can't believe Justin Fields fell this far. And you're like, well, yeah, maybe he's not that great. He might not be that great, but he might have also been in a terrible offense with a terrible head coach. Who knows if that's going to improve? It's not like the Bears have really done anything to help him out, which is really stupid. But there's so much unknown. And so I don't feel it's fair to rank them ahead of Daniel Jones because we've seen Daniel Jones do some legitimate things at the NFL level. I'm totally fine putting them, though, ahead of Jared Goff, Drew Lock, and Sam Darnold. I've seen enough to fully write the book on those 3 quarterbacks. But so this is my, kind of unknown, kind of not unknown, don't really know where to put them tier.
With Fields, people were saying, oh, they may be able to win the division, or at least they were like, they might be able to make the playoffs. People said that
because that was at the draft when the Aaron Rodgers stuff was super hot and he might leave. So that was a legitimate factor that you have to consider.
But even still, even make the play. I think even after that was clear, he wasn't, or so there was the uncertainty for a while. But still, the point was, I think there was a lot of Justin Fields is going to be good right away. I did see a lot of that. And then he wasn't. And then there was backtracking. Well, it's not like we expected him to be great. Anyway, that's a whole aside. So for similar identification, but different ranking value, I have them a little bit higher just because I think they have the potential. They have more upside than the guys I have at 13 and 12, which are the top 2 picks from the 2014 draft class.
Wow.
That is Jameis Winston at number 13. And to be clear, I made these rankings back when Stats and I did the AFC quarterback rankings. So if for some reason you're a fan of an AFC team and you want to hear that, you can go check out that on the SB Nation NFL show from a month ago. So this isn't me being biased against the Saints and just recently making this. I made this way before the trade happened with the Eagles and the Saints.
Also, to be clear, it's 2015. Just I don't want the people to come 2015 draft.
Yeah.
Class.
What was I thinking of?
You said 2014.
Right. Yeah, the year before Wentz and Goff, which were 2016. Okay,
right.
Yeah, good correction by you. I think Jameis had a good year before, and in some ways, in terms of his efficiency, touchdown to interception ratio was pretty good. It was the best he's ever played, though. And I just and it was with Sean Payton. I don't know that that's sustainable. You're losing Sean Payton. He's coming off of an ACL and MCL injury, not just maybe a normal ACL. He's coming off a significant injury. No more Sean Payton. You look at his career work, it's last year was very much the exception. We've seen him turn over the ball a lot. He's a turnover machine with fumbles, interceptions. And again, if I'm going to have Daniel Jones marked down for that kind of thing, I'm going to have Jameis just above him there. So I have him at number 13. I've always been a Marcus Mariota guy. Probably irrationally so.
You're an Eagles guy, of course.
Yeah, he's the prince that was promised. And obviously
that's an amazing what if. When you're dry for off-season content this year, that's a what if worth exploring, I think.
They weren't. It's always like that. There was that rumor out there during that 2015 draft that they were going to trade Fletcher Cox and Brandon Boykin and all these first round picks. I didn't get the sense that was actually close to happening. I feel like that got leaked out, but wasn't actually that's not what I heard. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I misheard. But in any case,
so hold up. You have Mariota higher though. You have him 12. Jameis 13. Okay, gotcha.
I do. But again, you're splitting hairs there.
Okay, so that is 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 for us, which takes us to 11. So you so far you have Goff at 11.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so far you've only gone through one NFC East quarterback.
Correct.
So you have 3 NFC East quarterbacks in the top 10, just to be clear. So
which really is it's more of a statement about the lack of good quarterback in the NFC.
Well, I also have 3 NFC East quarterbacks in the top 10, but that's because at 11 I have Carson Wentz. I mean, I have him
under Daniel Jones.
I have him lower than Daniel Jones. And like, this is lame, but it's real. Like the locker room stuff, right? Like that's a real thing. Like I maintain that he is not this terrible player. And that's why, like, I think the Colts, like, oh, we improved so much with Matt Ryan. No, you didn't. Like, it's a lateral move as far as who they are as quarterbacks, but you improved the, like, harmony of your team in spades by getting rid of Carson Wentz. Okay, great. This is like the worst locker room in the NFL, right? Like with the worst ownership and the like worst, kind of vision, however you want to put it. And you're putting this dude, this is like Nas for that momentum. You know what I mean? So that's a factor for me. I know that's unfair, but it is a real thing. I mean, this is a team that was fighting on benches this season, ironically, of all things, fighting on benches. And so like, I would posit that Carson Wentz will only exacerbate that issue, which is why he's 11 for me.
I think under Jones isn't fair because Carson Wentz, for all his faults, and I agree with that, you have to weigh that stuff. But I still think you're talking about like a top, like I don't know, like if you look at his 2019 kind of last season, you're talking about like a top 16, 14 quarterback in the NFL. Like it's not anything special, but I think that's more than what Daniel Jones has shown, at least more regularly. And obviously the upside. And I don't think Wentz is any getting back to MVP form ever. But like he has tools as well. Like he has raw talent, and maybe not as much as he once did with all the injuries. And again, locker room stuff is a huge, huge issue, and will be a big reason why he's never going to win anything meaningful. But I think he deserves some more benefit of the doubt, again, just based on accomplishment over Daniel Jones. And so I actually have Carson Wentz a little bit higher than you do.
So that takes us to the top 10 because you had Goff 11. We already touched on him. I will say not my number 10 is Daniel Jones, who we've touched on a lot. So I have 2 NFC East quarterbacks from 10 through 16. So I don't, only 2 maybe in the top half. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, I just. You actually are the person who convinced me a little bit on Daniel Jones, to be very fair. Like, you are right that there is an athlete somewhere in there. And the same way we're going to somewhat fault Carson Wentz for his off the field or in the locker room sort of shenanigans or hijinks or whatever, I think that it is beneficial the same way it was for Jared Goff having Sean McVay, for Daniel Jones that he has Brian Daboll. I recognize that Brian Daboll is unproven as a head coach, but I'm interested in that. I'm willing to bet on that. Like I'm not willing to bet a lot. Like I don't know what like if we had to like devise odds on them, I would like those odds to
a
bet
long
on.
Shot bet.
Right, and I think I trust that, or I'm more willing to trust that than I am almost any other of these set of circumstances.
Like $10 to win $200 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Like it is very. You said, a little while ago, but it is very Jameis Winston with Sean Payton-ish. Not to say Brian Daboll is Sean Payton, but like that archetype of a move sort of thing.
It's worth a look, yeah. And we'll see how that goes this season. I have Justin Fields at number 10 and Trey Lance at number 9. Again, you can flip those. I think Fields, for all his faults, and there are many, especially because he just holds onto the ball for forever, he does have tools. Like you've seen the flashes of, I understand why people are intrigued with him and we're getting excited about him last year. Like I understand what you're pointing to when you say that. It's not like I can't see anything here. Like Mitchell Trubisky for a long time, for I think his entire career, like I never got what there was really to be excited about,
except that he could run. That's it.
Except as a passer.
He's like, you could put Mitchell Trubisky and Jalen Hurts in the same camp right now.
Like I've seen Justin Fields flash a little bit. I'm like, okay, there's definitely talent here. So I'm kind of giving him and Trey Lance the benefit of the doubt, which maybe they don't deserve, but because of they are athletic and they have these tools, I think there's a chance. So let me put it this way. I think there's a better chance that like either Trey Lance or Justin Fields can be in the top 5 as soon as this year and make this massive leap. Not that it's likely, but could theoretically happen than, Jared Goff or Jameis Winston getting up there. So because of that ceiling, their perceived ceiling, I'll put them more in the middle and give them a chance at that happening, other than just being like totally just weighing on past accomplishment there. So that's kind of how I ended up with those guys.
I agree. I did want to just sandwich this in again. Just a tweet that I just saw right now while we're recording. This is from Darren Haynes, who covers all things Washington sports out of Washington, but tweeted, breaking, Oversight Committee sent letter to Federal Trade Commission indicates Commanders and owner Dan Snyder may have engaged in troubling, long-running, and potentially unlawful pattern of financial conduct that may have victimized fans. So we've already heard the stories about him allegedly pocketing the profits from visiting, or like keeping them from visiting owners or visiting teams or organizations or whatever. If he's keeping money from fans, not that like there's anybody left on Team Snyder or that anybody ever was there, but it only makes the situation all the worse. It's amazing. Like you think it can't get any worse, but somehow it always does.
It's always funny because I see a lot of fans, just based on following Eagles fans, who are like, get Dan Snyder out of here. And it's always like a weird thing to me because it's like, obviously I agree in a vacuum and as someone who has empathy for maybe other sports fans, but like from an Eagles perspective, it's like, no, what are you talking about? Keep him here forever. Yeah. It's great.
Like, I mean, we're so sad that Dave Gettleman is gone and Joe Judge. Like they were some favorites of the NFC East mixtape, at least in this current construction of it.
Jason Garrett as well,
Yeah.
Both times. Giants and obviously Giants version for you, Cowboys version for me, and Giants version. Really sad. Why don't we take a break here because we're halfway through?
Well, okay. So time for our break. But that break only exists for the podcast audience. So yes. Podcast audience, we're back. YouTube audience, we didn't leave. So shout out to us for magic that happens. Boom. Shout out to Rachel Prevet, our fantastic producer who puts all this together. So great job, you, BLG, remembering that. Look at you. You proud of yourself?
When we're doing like rankings here on the Oddcast, or not here on the Oddcast, but here or / the Oddcast. Well, I know you confuse other podcasts that you're on for the Oddcast. The listeners know that as well. If they heard the look ahead last week, but it's just like a natural break. It's like, oh, we should probably just do it halfway.
It wasn't the look ahead. It was the look ahead 2 weeks ago. It was the Oddcast last week when you highlighted it. So, way to be factually incorrect.
Pointed out again, I believe, on the look ahead.
Anyway, okay, so my number 9. Are we ready for this? We've already talked about him, but Marcus Mariota is my number 9. Just like, some of it is situation. Like, I mean, we're not excited about this. I actually saw a tweet a little while ago, right before we started recording, that Arthur Blank said that he is looking for the next Matt Ryan. Whoa. Looking for another franchise quarterback? What a unique thing. But I just don't trust this situation. Mariota is like, again, this is the glow up of the former second overall picks this offseason. Marcus Mariota, second overall pick in 2015. Carson Wentz, second overall pick in 2016. It is a glow up. Mitchell Trubisky, second overall pick in 2017. 3 straight second overall picks. Like the move, if you're Baker Mayfield and you're listening, big NFC East mixtape fan, Baker Mayfield is. I know you were the first overall pick, but go be a backup somewhere else. Don't even touch a football this year. Just go be a backup. Go lift weights. Go watch the new season of Stranger Things. Did you see the trailer, by the way, BLG?
No.
Looks pretty good. Dropped today. But just go stay out of the limelight for a year, and then next offseason, people will talk themselves into you. People will think, just because they haven't seen you in a little while, that like you got better, and that's what people think about Marcus Mariota. I know we've seen him a little bit in Vegas, but still not really the same thing. I know Carson Wentz played last year, but again, like all the hype exists because of his previous draft position. And why Mitchell Trubisky? Like he didn't do anything last year. Like what did he do that like merits being the starter for the Steelers this year? Nothing. Hey. So, yeah.
Is this the year for Saquon Barkley then? The year of number 2 picks?
No, he's a year too early. He's still too close to being a second overall pick. So next year, when the Giants cut him, it's going to be like, we'll get wherever he signs in the spring of 2023, we'll get the like Sports Center graphic that's like, this is the like insert team here offense, and it's gonna be like the screenshots of like each individual player. It's gonna be like Saquon Barkley. It's like, yeah, he sucks. That's one
of my least favorite things about the NFL offseason is when people will do that for like literally any player. It's like, oh, Jalen Reagor and Devontae Smith and Quez Watkins. It's like, okay, but like just because you make a picture or a photograph, if you Photoshop some players together, like doesn't mean they're good.
Speaking of Jalen's, I have Jalen Hurts at number 8.
Wow, what a hater.
You're the real Jalen Hurts hater, but
you have him lower than I do.
I mean, look, he's not a great passer. Like this is a ranking of quarterbacks. Like this.
Do you think that's important?
Hell yeah, I think it's important. Like, I mean,
okay.
And especially if you're a team
agree.
that is if you're a team that's investing like premium resources in wide receivers, like the whole goal is to throw the ball. Like I think about all the like resources, and like Jalen Reagor sucks, whatever, but like he's still a first round draft pick. Devontae Smith's a first round draft pick. Dallas Goedert's a second round draft pick, right? And has a second contract that he got like really recently. So like, how can you have all of this investment in the aerial attack of your offense and play in the year 2022 and just think that running the ball a million times is the way to succeed? I will give Nick Sirianni credit that he has like understood how to like make lemonade out of this situation, but just because you can make lemonade doesn't mean it's good lemonade. You know what I mean?
What kind of lemonade is your favorite lemonade?
Oh man, like I hate to go like super corporate and the man or anything like that, but the the strawberry lemonade at Chili's, you know what I'm talking about?
I don't think I've had it. I like it Chili's.
It's legit, and it comes in that like stein, you know what I'm talking about, like with the like handle or whatever.
Yep.
And you can see like the little like seeds from the strawberry. It's legit. I mean, I don't want too much ice though, because I don't want to dilute the flavor. You know what I mean?
Really niche here, but there's this place in Trenton, New Jersey, RJ, called Capital, New Jersey, if you didn't know, called Halo Farms, and they make the best dang lemonade. Some of it that I've had in my life. Always had that growing up. It was great. I like a pink lemonade here and there, not like all the time, but like
It's the same thing as a strawberry, basically.
I mean, yeah, but like the point is, it's a nice change of pace. The summertime, you get some lemonade.
It's good. I imagine you don't get a lot of sweet tea up in your neck of the woods, right?
We have sweet tea up here,
but like it's not like the same sort of staple that it is here. Like that's okay to admit.
Wawa sweet tea is a big thing.
Okay, but there's a great type of sweet tea. It's not like in a lot of places, but where it's like they brew it with like a fruit in it. So it's like watermelon sweet tea. Oh, dude, it's legit.
Used to get the McDonald's sweet tea. That was always good, I felt like.
Oh man, no. If you're gonna go like fast food, Chick-fil-A sweet tea. Let's party.
The lines, man, always a line.
Dude, they go so fast.
Huge line.
Like who cares? They go so fast.
It's it's the principle of the thing. All right.
So I have Jalen Hurts at 8. Who do you have at 8?
I have Carson Wentz just under Jalen
Wow,
Hurts here.
you love him. You miss him. You wish he was back. Embarrassing.
I have him at number 8. Middle of the road. That's what he is at this point in his career. He is not the worst quarterback. He's not even close to being the best quarterback in the conference. Firmly in the middle there. I think he's not going to be what he was in 2020 for Washington this year. He's going to be better than that. He'll be probably somewhat similar to what he was in 2018 for the Eagles, or 2019 for the Eagles, or 2021 for the Colts. Although he got a lot of support from Jonathan Taylor last year, and he's not going to be able to bank on that because I don't think Antonio Gibson is kind of carrying that workload. And I think Antonio Gibson's a fine player. But
you mean Christian McCaffrey, according to Ron Rivera a year ago?
Yeah, they're going to get him.
No, but he like the quote he had. He was like, "Well, we're going to use him just like we used Christian McCaffrey." Like I'm 100% serious in saying that I completely believe this. If Ron Rivera were to be like, "Well, I think Carson Wentz is going to be Cam Newton and Antonio Gibson's going to be Christian McCaffrey, and we're going to basically have the 2015 Panthers offense," I really believe that there's a sector of people who would be like, "Let's go!" They'd be like, gassed about this. It's stupid.
I bet you that's probably how they see it, though. That's actually a good. I never thought about that in terms of trying to typecast. Because Carson does have like some of just being huge, like
he's got the physical assets of Cam, right?
Yeah. So and like hard to tackle and bring down and get down in the pocket and such. So yeah, I can actually see that a little bit, but obviously not anywhere close to 2015 peak Cam and the peak Panthers.
Okay, so
Hurts at number 7 is for me.
So you have Hurts. So then you do have, because Wentz is 8 for you. You have 3 in the top half of as far as the NFC is concerned, 3 NFC East quarterbacks in the top half.
Yes.
Okay. So you have
barely at the top half.
So you have Wentz 8, Hurts 7. I have Hurts 8. I have not said this name, and I think this is gonna like shock you based on where you had him. But for me, 7 is Jameis Winston because he is a lottery ticket. That's how I view Jameis. And like I will admit, it's not a great lottery ticket, especially right now coming off the injury, especially without Sean Payton. But we've seen that lottery ticket hit before. Like we have now. Granted, it has come with a negative side. We have like he can
in
put
what
up,
meaningful way?
Not any, but like we've seen him put up big numbers.
Good argument.
We have seen him put up big offensive numbers. Granted, to your
Big
point,
turnover numbers.
he has at the same time put up bad offensive numbers, but that dude lurks within him. I mean, like, and he also, his only season in New Orleans did not have Michael Thomas. I don't even know what that means, but you know what I mean? Like, it's such an unknown. Like, you know, as far as who Michael Thomas is, and like part of this ranking for me hinges on what they do in the draft. Like, it's an optimistic ranking that like maybe they do draft a Chris Olave, whatever. So like all of a sudden, Jameis is cooking with gas down in the bayou. So like I'm interested to see that. I'm willing to admit though that this is the one I'm least confident in.
Sure. It's hard to feel that way, but maybe they also draft a Matt Corral or a Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis. So like maybe he's not even the starter the whole year.
Then we got to redo this whole exercise and then it's stupid. So, okay. So we do have the same top 6 because we haven't said any of the names.
I think I think it's hard to argue that the top 6 isn't the top 6 in some order.
Right. So like this is a clear tier, right? Like, and there are tiers within this tier, but this is like, there's a clear separation from this group that we're about to discuss and everybody that we've already discussed. Agreed?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say above average within the conference.
Right. Okay. So number 6, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? How do you want to do this? Because I know yours. I know yours. Yours is Kirk Cousins.
Of course it is.
Mine is
how could
Kyler,
it be anything? How could
mine
it
is
be?
Kyler Murray. I'm willing to put Kirk ahead of Kyler. And some of it is the baggage too. We talked about this on Monday Football Monday. Kyler is maybe like the only person who has not properly executed the unfollow the team on Instagram move, right? Like there is dysfunction in Arizona right now that is brewing. I think this is his last season there. Willing to go out on a limb there. No, not in a super original take. And Kyler, like we love to bag on quarterbacks who fail, who whatever, this and that, whatever. The way that they collapsed has to be put on him in some way, shape, or form. And it isn't. Like, for some reason, he kind of skates scot-free within
Cliff.
that. It's all Cliff. It's all Keim. It's all everybody else. It's all just like the Cardinals. People are willing to kind of generalize it that way. Why? Why isn't Kyler held responsible for the complete and total collapse that happened not just this past season, but they lost that win and in game to John Wolford or whatever 2 years ago? I mean, like, Kyler is kind of somebody who shrinks in big moments, whereas Kirk, who I have at 5th, like, I'm not saying
comes up big in big moments.
I'm not saying that, but we have seen the touchdown throw that Kirk had to Kyle Rudolph against New Orleans in the playoff game 2 years ago. We have never seen that moment from Kyler Murray. We have never seen that.
Okay. Kirk is a loser. We all know that. And he's going to be a big reason why Justin Jefferson is in his last season with the Vikings. A little oddcast crossover here today because you haven't had the chance to listen yet, RJ, I'm sure, but you will later too, as I know you will. We did, Stats and I did our most controversial takes for the off-day debrief, and one of mine was on Kyler and about how the Cardinals' concerns about him, which everyone seemed to have like strong reactions to and seemed like we're too harsh. To me, we're not really too harsh, and we're not really totally off base. And to your point about the collapses there, 6-11, RJ, in games that have been in December on over his career. He has an average passer rating in December on of 45.9, and that doesn't include his 40.9 passer rating in the playoff loss this year to the Rams. So, yeah, he has not been good. Now, obviously, he has some athleticism. He did get better last year in terms of years before. So, I'm not saying he's at the bottom of the conference. There are some tools here. He's a electric runner and a dangerous runner.
Sure. So what?
And he has talent. He's like arm talent. He can make some. So like he deserves to be, I believe, in this top 6. He can do some things. He can get you to the playoffs in theory. Like you're a playoff contender with him. But I agree with you. He has not caught enough flack. And I think part of it is fans, especially. I don't know if I'm getting old. I am getting old. But I feel like this new generation of fan, RJ, they just love the players too much. Like they can't criticize the players, especially quarterbacks. It's like he's the quarterback, so we can't criticize him. We have to support him no matter what.
Like the way people feel about quarterbacks is he's either flawless or he's trash. Like there's no like in between for anybody. And that's like you're guilty of that when it comes to Kirk Cousins.
It's so much easier to blame the coach. Like it's because it's just like it's always the coach's fault for everything for some reason. In NBA happens a lot too. When for some reason like it just doesn't even make sense when you're looking at the money too. It's like, why is all these players are getting paid like millions and millions and like big millions of dollars while the coach is making a few a year? Like, and you're blaming the coach? Like, not to say the coach is never at fault, but I just think the blame this happened with Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson got thrown under the bus. Everyone was like, he ruined Carson Wentz. Give me a break. Like we saw that wasn't true at all. And people wanted to like just drag Doug, who won a Super Bowl without Carson Wentz and with Nick Foles at quarterback instead. Even
and,
like
and
doing
not just
that,
won a Super Bowl like this like Mickey Mouse one. Like he beat the like greatest act of the GOAT.
and then they got back to the divisional round next year with a backup. Like, so it wasn't just like total 1 year fluke. Like he did some really good things. And even then, Doug was still getting all of the blame, and Wentz was like blameless in a lot of people's eyes. So I think that's part of it.
I think that quarterbacks, especially high profile quarterbacks, are very smart, and not to take away from their own intellect, but also have very smart people working for and around them. And I think that that is partly true for Carson Wentz, who existed in a very, very volatile media market and took advantage of that by pushing the narrative that it was all Doug's fault, whatever. It was an ugly divorce. So like there is naturally in an ugly split like that going to be people who side on either side of the argument. When it comes to Russell Wilson, this is the path that Kyler's following. A year ago, Russell made sure to like preemptively put all fault on the Seahawks. But by wanting out last year, no matter how poorly Russell Wilson played in 2021, granted he got hurt for the first time ever, it was all going to be on the Seahawks. It was all, and that's all you hear. Pete Carroll, and a lot of that is true, obviously, only wants to run the ball, won't let Russ cook, blah, blah, blah. Like we act like Russell is this huge victim. Like he didn't have faults of his own in Seattle. Like he doesn't, incite pressure and doesn't get rid of the ball, too late or whatever. And that is just as true for Kyler. And again, I don't want to like harp on this like Kirk is better than him. And this is one metric. Like we can go on and on, like, PFF scores, whatever. But I did in preparation for this because we got to prepare for this. But like Football Outsiders DYAR ranking. Okay, again, I'm laying out the initials though, like for anyone who doesn't want to hear it that way.
I was just saying them.
Right. So this is just the top 10, all right, in order. So like 1 through 10. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Dak Prescott, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert. Those are the top 5. Matthew Stafford at 6, Kirk Cousins at 7, Derek Carr at 8, and Kyler Murray at 9. For perspective, Russell Wilson 15 and Carson Wentz 16, Jalen Hurts 17. So my point is like, yes, Kyler is good. He is like an above average starter, like we said, but like I think that just like Russell, we act like some people are going to act like Kyler's this victim. The Cardinals have actually, I think they deserve credit for understanding, we have a quarterback on a rookie contract. They traded for DeAndre Hopkins. They obviously brought in J.J. Watt. And, granted, they've lost players, and they lost Chandler Jones, and, they lost Christian Kirk, whatever. But, like, they took their swing. Like, they surrounded him. They gave him arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL when they traded for DeAndre Hopkins. And what did he do with it? Like, people, from a football perspective, criticized Deshaun Watson for not accomplishing things in Houston when he had DeAndre Hopkins. What has Kyler Murray done? Like, he threw him one Hail Mary one time against the Bills. That's it. Like that's like the only thing we're going to give him. It's stupid.
You could flip these for me. It's another one of those situations easily.
Oh, wow. I've worn you down a little bit. We can flip Kirk and Kyler. Let's go.
I mean, same tier, but like they're both not winning anything significant. Right. So congrats. I will say I have Kyler above just in part though, because he's 24. He's younger. In theory, he still has some, like Kirk is what he is at this point. He's an empty stat stuffer or whatever. So Kyler in theory could make a leap. I'm not going to count on it.
I would break the top 6 into 3 different tiers. So like this is 1, Kirk and Kyler. Like you said, you can flip whatever ones you want in this order. If you want to have Kyler above Kirk or Kirk above Kyler, like I can live with that. The next tier is 2 quarterbacks that are obviously Dak Prescott and Matthew Stafford. I would imagine that you have Stafford ranked higher.
I would hope you would too, considering he just won a Super Bowl.
Okay, so like I'm not denying that, and I'm not saying like it doesn't matter, but they also almost blew the divisional round game against the Buccaneers.
Yes,
like
almost.
And he almost, he actually threw the game-losing interception in the NFC Championship game. I mean, like, so we can't just like look at the positives here. I acknowledge he is a fantastic quarterback, has an amazing arm. He also might have the best receiver in the NFL in Cooper Kupp. Not that Dak Prescott doesn't have any weapons, but if like I think it's the same argument. Like Dak is younger, Dak has more mobility, Dak has maybe not just as big of an arm, but I think he has close enough to as big of an arm. Like Dak has an incredible deep ball as well, and he's one of the more efficient passers in the NFL. He doesn't take a lot of risks, which maybe he should start to do. Maybe that's been part of the issue here. But I put Dak ahead of Matthew Stafford, but I can totally acknowledge that it might go either way. Again, similar to the way that Kirk and Kyler are. I think these 3 tiers have that with all 2 quarterbacks in each tier.
I think you have to give Stafford the benefit of the doubt here. with the postseason. I know what you can say, whatever, close, whatever. And he wasn't good to end the regular season.
Okay, so in the
way.
postseason, they beat the Cardinals, who we just trashed, and Kyler. Okay, then they almost blew it against the Buccaneers. Then he threw the game-losing interception against the 49ers, who he had lost to in an important game in Week 17. Yes, he had a great performance in the Super Bowl. He deserves all credit in the world for that. Again, I'm not saying it's insignificant or doesn't mean anything, but the totality of his career matters as well, not just like a couple of games.
Yeah, and I don't think I would put the top two in this conference in elite, and I wouldn't put him in elite. But I think he's at the top end of pretty good quarterbacks. So that's why I have him number 3 over Dak. And what does Dak need to do this year? What is the bar for him?
I think. So Dak really disappointed over the second half of the season, and
low key. I feel like that doesn't get talked about enough because it's the bullseyes on McCarthy.
You're not hanging out on my Twitter timeline.
National perspective, obviously. I think the national focus is on McCarthy, and Dak kind of slid under that.
I would disagree with that only because I think people tend to focus on the calf strain that happened, which is ironic because now Luka Doncic has a calf strain, as far as Dallas superstars are concerned. But that people are willing to give the fault for his play to that, right? He wasn't the same after the calf, whatever. And I will give Dak credit himself that he went on the Rich Eisen show and the lead up to the Super Bowl, and he said that he actually is given more credit than he feels he deserves, that he doesn't feel like it was as large of an excuse as a lot of people make it out to be. So give him some credit for owning that and some accountability, whatever. There's no question that he was that might be the worst he's ever played. Certainly the worst he's ever played with legitimate talent around him. This offseason feels very similar to 2018 when the Cowboys cut Dez Bryant, and rightly so. I think they were proven correct in that move, and then tried to go at the wide receiver very infamously with a wide receiver by committee. They signed Deontay Thompson. They signed Allen Hurns. They traded for Tavon Austin during the draft. They drafted Michael Gallup, ultimately panicked and had to trade for Amari Cooper, which saved their season. I mean, they have CeeDee Lamb. They have Michael Gallup coming back. They're probably going to draft a receiver. We do mock drafts, by the way, every Monday on the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel, and we have taken a wide receiver every single time, pretty high in the top 3 rounds at least. But as far as what he has to do, he has to show that he can do it, right? He has. I don't think this is fair to say, but it's true. He has never been an elite quarterback without Amari Cooper on the team. So what is it? I'm not saying it's this chicken or egg thing, but I think it would give people some peace to see him be that elite quarterback without him. I don't think anybody doubts that he can be that guy. I don't even think you doubt it, but it has never happened. And so that's what he needs to do. He needs to take this step and prove that he is the reason. He is the chicken or the egg, whichever you believe came first, which is maybe a different subject that we do at a certain point. But that's what he needs to do. I mean, I don't think that Matthew Stafford is that guy, to be very clear here. I think Matthew Stafford was the final infinity stone, and Matthew Stafford benefited from a cowardly but great head coach, great wide receiver, great defense, also playing a team that had a really obvious weakness in the Super Bowl. But all those things matter, and all those things are relevant, and all those things go into the pot, and he still won, and he still had a great performance and a clutch performance in the biggest game of all games. And so, I mean, I think that you can at least acknowledge that these, just like Kyler and Kirk, could be flipped depending on a number of different variables.
All right, so that brings us to the final 2, which are pretty obvious.
So do you want to know who my number 2 is or my number 1? Do you want to tell me who your number 2 is or number 1? How do we want to do this? This, if we think about it, this is Survivor, where Jeff is reading the votes for who wins. He's not reading the votes of who's voted off of the final 3 now. But do we want to announce our number 1 or our number 2 and it be known? How do you want to do this?
You got to go in order. And for me, I'll put Tom Brady at number 2. So that leaves Aaron Rodgers at number 1. I mean, for as much as Rodgers is disappointed in the playoffs, he is what? Has he won MVP twice in a row now?
He has.
Okay, so kind of tough to not put that guy at the top of these. And obviously, again, you're also splitting hairs. You could flip these, whatever, fine. If you want to go off playoff success, Brady's older, whatever. These are the top. This is the thing. It's them and it's everyone else. That's the NFC. It's Aaron Rodgers, it's Tom Brady, and then kind of everyone else. And obviously, maybe someone can make a leap, whatever. But it starts with them.
I agree. It's impossible to objectively say that Aaron Rodgers is not number 1. I do think, again, to go back to the kind of Daniel Jones thing, if we had to bet, depending on odds, I might take Tom Brady to however you wanted to define it, like finish with more passing yards or finish with more wins or something like that. Because I think the Bucs are more set up for success, especially when you consider the division that they play in. Like, think about it. So we both have Tom Brady too. I had Jameis 7, which was very generous. I had Mariota 9, and we agreed that Sam Darnold could be last, right? So like Brady's facing like nothing, but Aaron has to compete with one of the top 6, like one of the coveted top 6 here in Kirk Cousins. Like he also gets Jared Goff and Justin Fields, but he has 2 games against a much better player and much better quarterback than Tom Brady does. I mean, and they get to play each other, and I would take the Bucs in that game because the Packers don't have Devontae Adams.
Sure. Yeah. I don't think that's unfair. So if you want to lay it out and like by like playoff teams in terms of like the top 7, so like the Eagles are right where they were last year at the number 7 seed. The Cowboys are the 4 seed. Is that what they were? Isn't it what they? So
no, they were the 3 seed.
Okay,
all.
So 1 spot lower here for me, 1 spot higher for you, but basically the same thing. And then we have the Washington football team, aka the Commanders, now like fringe playoff team. And then you kind of have Giants as closer to fringe playoff team. I have them closer to just bottom of the league.
I think that is representative of how, at least obviously, I view the conference. Like, I think if there's a swing team, like a team who was not a player that is like a cute player this year, it's probably the Giants. But it would require the Brian Daboll like benefit for Daniel Jones. Like, it would require some sort of leap in that sense. They will also, I think they're the Saints of this year potentially. Like, I think they take the spot that the Saints kind of had. They almost had that playoff spot. You know what I mean? Like, that's just where they're at. If things click in the right way, a lot of things have to happen for that to be the case. But it's possible. It exists in the realm of possibilities.
Why don't we do this real quick? If you'll humor me, why don't we do like ceiling and floor? Like, what's the realistic highest we could see each of these quarterbacks and the realistic lowest we could see them on these rankings this year? You get what I'm saying?
So I think we're willing to acknowledge that Jared Goff, Drew Lock, Sam Darnold, their ceiling is like maybe the 10th
I mean, like the
quarterback.
NFC East quarterbacks.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with Carson Wentz. I think floor could be like last. Like he's maybe the only. Maybe
I think he'll be above Lock and Darnold.
Okay, fine. So basically
like 14.
last. So like last in real world terms. But ceiling is like top 7, like top 8, like
7,
one of the better half.
Yeah. 7.
Yeah. I don't think he could be a top 5. I don't think he could be. I think we should also answer: can they be one of these top 6 quarterbacks? Obviously, Dak,
right.
Yes, but I don't think Carson can.
Okay, so why don't we move on to Daniel Jones? I think the floor for him is like 14, where I put him, basically.
Especially if the turnovers continue. Like this could be like Daniel Jones gets benched. Like that could totally happen this season, right?
I could say the ceiling for him would be 5.
If things click, yeah. He can enter the top 6 because he has athletic traits and he doesn't have the like a renegade, mantra that Carson Wentz does. Like his turnovers are just because he sucks. They're not because he's like trying to be a hero. You know what I mean?
Correct. I will say for Dak, that's ceiling is 3 to me, or 2. I
think ceiling
1.
is 2 because like it makes sense that Brady or Rodgers could regress a little bit. You know what I mean? Especially Rodgers. No, it's not likely that both do.
Right.
Especially like I could see I think it's more likely that Brady stays king and that Rodgers regresses because he has just played out of this world these last 2 years. Like the bottom has to come out eventually, and Devontae Adams not being there obviously lends to that. Now, granted, Dak has lost Amari too, and we'll see how the draft works out for both of them. But I think ceiling is 2 for Dak. Floor probably like 8 or 9. I think
I was going to say 8. Yeah, 8.
And Jalen Hurts, man, I don't think his ceiling is the top 6. I think he's at his ceiling.
What a hater.
He's at his ceiling. I don't think that's like
I agree.
fair to, or unfair to say. But I think his floor
he could
is
be like 6.
Sure, but like
he's not top 5. He's just not.
He's not top 6 either. I mean, like
he could be 6
I would
to me, but whatever.
Maybe if Kirk starts to actually regress,
or Kyler just thinks it up,
right? But like floor for Jalen is honestly like 13. Like if he just like, if he can't run anymore, like if it's just checking down, whatever, like dumping off, like over and over and over again, like that's not a quarterback. Like that's Tebow. You know what I mean? That's all he is.
Yeah, I'm gonna say like 12. He's in that 7 to 12 kind of range. Like he's definitely above again Darnold, lock just because of the rushing value. Like there's enough there of a floor with him that he's not going to be like the worst quarterback in the conference. He kind of has that going for him, but the ceiling isn't there. I said it again on the Oddcast. One of my controversial takes is that Jalen Hurts is so much closer to his ceiling than people want to admit just because he's 23 and last season was his full first year. And everyone loves to celebrate the fact that he took the Eagles to the playoffs when the Eagles passed the ball at a lower percentage than any other team. And then also got to the playoffs and got immediately waxed. But that's somehow an accomplishment. He led them to the playoffs. Okay, and what? And then what did you do when you got there? Literally nothing. And you only made it because the NFL added a 7th seed. Like, that's not an accomplishment. It's not like the Eagles or people or fans, whatever, they want to hang banners for the lamest stuff. Like, you guys are the Colts here. Like, hanging a banner for a playoff appearance or whatever it was. Like, you just, come on. Like, we need to stop celebrating some of the lamest stuff.
It was for being an AFC Championship participant.
Right.
It was like
that's what people do. People made fun of that, but then people will do stuff like, "Oh, he got better. Oh, the Eagles made the play." Like, okay, and what? Like, you're celebrating this?
I think it's so rare that players come into the NFL and hit their ceilings, like their career ceilings, right away. I think we might have seen that with Jamar Chase as an example. Not to say that like he can't be great for the rest of his career, but like it's probably unlikely that he's going to be that great ever again, right? Like, just again, laws of probability. I hope I'm wrong because he's awesome.
And his floor is probably really high.
Right. But like, we have seen, I think, the ceiling of Jalen Hurts right away, but we have not seen the floor. You know, and like that's a really, if you're an Eagles fan, a terrifying thought. I also think it speaks to like it speaks to the situation that you just described. There have been 2 7 seeds in NFL history because there have only been 2 seasons that this has existed. It was the 2021 Eagles and the 2020 Chicago Bears. Played the exact same way. Like the exact same quarterback, can't do anything, just run, whatever, blah, blah, and survive and just not suck as much as everybody else. That's it. That's all that they've done. Like, and that's this isn't like me bagging on the Eagles. They just, last year they were a playoff team because they sucked less than 9 other teams.
They were down, like 31-0 to the Bucs. Like, it wasn't even a game. It wasn't even like, okay, it was kind of competitive. And then the Bucs pulled away.
They got waxed by the Cowboys in the only real meeting. And the second one didn't count. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they
like
lost to the Bucs in the regular
division.
season. Like there was a clear like gap in quality between them and the other playoff teams.
They basically got like soundly beat by any playoff team they beat last year. Any kind of team with a winning record, other than the Saints, who they beat, but were starting Trevor Simeon at quarterback. Okay, great.
But what happens, and you know this better than anybody, is like, who did Jalen Hurts throw that big bomb to against the Niners? That like 93-yard touchdown or whatever it was.
Quez, yeah.
Yeah, but like that happens and it's like, see, it's like, yeah, he threw the ball like 17 yards and then like Quez like just took it to the house. Like that doesn't mean anything. That was a good
throw, but yeah.
But my point is like it gets like made up to be something that it's not.
Well, they also scored 3 points until garbage time in that game. So like, okay, that's one play that, you know, didn't work out, but you still had a lot of other time to score more than 3 points in the entire game.
Okay, we did it all. We said it all. Our rankings of NFC quarterbacks are in. Your thoughts. BLG is on Twitter at Brandon Gowton. I am on Twitter at RJ Ochoa. You can let us know by way of review, by way of comment on either YouTube video, the Bleeding Green Nation version, or the Blogging the Boys version. BLG, as we wind it down, do you have anything else you want to say about anything in the world, anything in life, anything that's on your mind, on your heart, on your soul?
Draft is 16 days away. We'll obviously be ramping some more of that up here on the mixtape. I think I want to revisit what we did last year. Maybe get Ed and Stabby on too, if we can, where we did our like the moves that you would most be afraid the other teams could make to kind of get a sense of like, okay, if the Cowboys draft this player, then that's like, as Eagles fans, that's bad news, and that kind of thing. I think it's fun to get that perspective. So maybe we'll do something like that, or we'll change it up. Who knows? RJ and I will talk about it off pod probably and figure it out. But point being is we're kind of like in a weird funk where we're getting close to the draft, but not like talking about it yet because there's still a little bit of time. So we'll pivot to that.
It's like when you're going out somewhere, like, and it takes like 30 minutes to get there, and it's like an hour before you're supposed to be there. So you're like, it's at 30 minutes before you're gonna leave, but it's like, and you're like dressed and you're ready, but it's like, what do I do? Like I don't have time. Yeah, exactly. I don't have time to like start up like anything like notable or serious or anything like that. So, okay. Well, let us know how the frozen pizza is. Well, you will have eaten it by the time everybody hears this. But if you are listening to this on Wednesday, BLG has put a photo of it on his Instagram story. He is on.
I'm
Instagram
not putting it. Oh,
yes,
story.
He is.
Okay.
He's on Instagram at Brandon Gowton. I am on Instagram at RJ Ochoa. So you can go back back and retroactively see the pizza that he ate back in time for you, but in the future for us.
Love
Brandon,
just the people like seeing that with no context of the podcast. Like, why is he posting a frozen pizza on Instagram?
The final 4,831,619 words belong to you. Make them great.
We need more empathy in the world. I say this as an empath. Everyone should be more like me.
Well said.